So this week we have a pretty exciting matchup, Packers versus Vikings in Minnesota, so not in Green Bay. Packers will be traveling to Minnesota to face off against the 4-5 Vikings. And I just feel like anytime, the Packers and Vikings play each other, it's a fun rivalry. It's always an exciting game. Lots of times it's a very close game. And so this week, if we take a look at the NFC North standings, the Packers clearly the better team at the moment, looking at record 8-2 at the moment. We have the Vikings sitting at 4-5. We got the Bears at 3-6, and now we have the Lions too at 0-8-1. So luckily they got a tie instead of losing once again. So I guess that's positive news for the Lions. At least you're slowly moving in the right direction. You would like a win, but I guess a tie is better than a loss. So Dan Campbell seems to slowly be improving this team. Maybe next week they'll finally get a win. We will see. But this week we have a Vikings team at 4-5 that honestly I think is much better than their record really looks like. If you take a look at their losses so far this season, they lost to the Ravens by 3 points. They lost to the Cowboys by 4 points. They lost to the Cardinals by 1 point, and they only lost to the Bengals by 3 points. So even though they do have 5 losses, lots of those games are very close. And one actually pretty interesting stat, they've apparently been ahead in every single game by at least 7 points. So they clearly have a very, very good team, and they've been in lots of very close battles, and I think that this isn't a team the Packers should take lightly. I think they have lots of weapons on this team, lots of good players, and I think this could be a close game between the Packers and the Vikings. So the Vikings are coming off a win. They just beat the Chargers 27-20, and I feel like the Chargers are a team who earlier in the season looked like one of the most dominant teams, but they've been struggling a little bit in the recent past. I think their record now, what's their record now? Like 5-2 right now, or 5-3. Let's see. Chargers. No, they're 5-4 right now. So the Chargers haven't been very good. As good as they were to start off the season. So they still do have a very solid team, I'd say. And the Vikings did come out with a victory, beating Justin Herbert there. And then one thing about this Vikings team, Kirk Cousins has actually been very, very, very good this season. So far this year, 2,434 yards, a 68.1% completion percentage, 18 touchdowns to only 2 interceptions, which is, one of the best, I'd say, probably touchdown interception ratios in the NFL, if not the very best. And he has the 6th best QBR in the NFL. Aaron Rodgers, for comparison, has the 9th best QBR. Josh Allen, 10th best QBR. So Kirk Cousins has been one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL this season, even better than Aaron Rodgers, which before the season, if you would have said that, I would have thought not very likely. But clearly Kirk Cousins has played very well this season. Also for Kirk Cousins, he is PFF's highest graded Kirk Cousins has the highest pass grade in the NFL, according to PFF. He has the 2nd highest grade on deep throws, so throws 20 plus yards, so he's been good in that area. And he has the highest graded, he's the highest graded QB in intermediate throws from 10 to 19 yards. So Kirk Cousins has been very, very good this season. And I think that the Packers definitely cannot, take him lightly coming in this week. I think the past few weeks, the Packers defense definitely has had lots of, tough tasks facing off against, Kyler Murray, then Patrick Mahomes, and then, Russell Wilson. So I don't think Kirk Cousins has that same, rushing ability, but he's still, a very, very good passer. And so this Packers defense that has been insanely good this year, one of the best defenses in the NFL, after just recently shutting out the Seahawks to a straight up, egg 0 points against the Seahawks, against Russell Wilson, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. So this Packers defense has been pretty consistent the past few weeks when it comes to shutting down, top tier or offenses that do have the ability to, really move the ball. They've really shut them down. And right now the Packers are the 3rd best scoring defense in the entire NFL. So this week coming into, Minnesota, as I was saying, Kirk Cousins has been great this year. And then also Justin Jefferson, one of the best, I'd say, wide receivers in the NFL. But last week, he was targeted versus the Chargers. He was targeted 11 times, had 9 catches for a season-high 143 yards. And then also they have Adam Thielen over there. So they definitely have a few very solid weapons, Justin Jefferson definitely being the best. And so far, through majority of the season, especially the past couple of games, the Packers have been good at shutting down some of the top threats, especially the past 2 weeks. If you take a look at the Chiefs game, we held Tyreek Hill, the Chiefs' best wide receiver, to 4 receptions for 37 yards. Travis Kelce had 5 receptions for 68 yards and a touchdown. So we held Tyreek Hill in check. Travis Kelce had a little bit more production, but still, I'd say a pretty solid game against, holding him in check a majority of the game. And then versus the Seahawks, we absolutely shut down their top 2 weapons there. DK Metcalf, 3 receptions, 26 yards. And in that game, he got so frustrated. He was, grabbing people's face masks, trying to throw people to the ground. So we really upset him. He couldn't get open. Russell Wilson couldn't really throw the ball around too well against the Packers defense, and then Tyler Lockett had 2 receptions for 23 yards. So even though Justin Jefferson is a top talent, I think the Packers do still have the ability to keep him in check. It definitely will be a challenge, but so far this season, even without Jair Alexander there at cornerback, the Packers have done a really good job with Eric Stokes, Rasul Douglas, Kevin King, and also, too, I think it comes down to just how good the safeties have been. Darnell Savage, Adrian Amos helping out a lot, and, just basically giving these cornerbacks some more cover at times to come in there and make plays. So even though Justin Jefferson is a very, very good receiver, the Packers have shown that they have been able to shut down receivers. So it will be a fun matchup to watch. Whether Eric Stokes is on, Justin Jefferson, or, Kevin King, depending on exactly, how these guys match up with them. But then also, too, they have Adam Thielen, who I think is also a solid receiver. So definitely some guys to keep an eye on to see if this Packers defense can continue to shut down lots of these weapons. And then, of course, the other weapon on this Vikings offense who really torched the Packers the last time we faced off against them last year in 2020. We have Dalvin Cook, who's still been, pretty solid this year. Maybe not quite as good as last year, but he's still, one of the most talented, I'd say, running backs in the NFL. So the last time the Packers play the Vikings, of course, this is a completely different defense this year, as we have seen. But last year, when the Vikings beat us, I think it was in November, Dalvin Cook had 163 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns. So I don't think we're going to see that same kind of explosive game from Dalvin Cook in this game, because his Packers defense has shown to be a lot better than the defense they were last season. But still, someone to watch out for, someone we need to definitely, keep in check coming in to this game. And then one other thing about this Vikings offense, they've been a pretty good offensive line so far this season. Right now, Kirk Cousins is the 30th sacked quarterback in the NFL, only being sacked 12 times this season. So we will see if the Packers' defensive line will be able to get pressure. We've been dealing with lots of injuries out there. Of course, Zadarius Smith being the biggest one, missing pretty much all the season except for a few snaps in, I think, week 1 it was. We lost Whitney Merciless, the guy we added from the Texans. He tore his bicep. He's out for the year as well. And then, of course, Rashawn Gary, hyperextended his elbow. But as I said in the injury videos the past couple days, the Packers injury update videos, it seems he's going to try to play through it with some kind of brace potentially. So we'll see if he's actually able to go. If he is able to go, you would assume that, maybe he's going to be a little less I guess not being quite at the level as he usually is if he has a huge brace on and his arm's pretty injured, but maybe he can push through it. Maybe he'll be able to. So it will be a tough task, I think, for this Packers defensive line, but they've shown the ability to get pressure lots last week against Russell Wilson, just, really making him run around. And so this will be a good matchup to watch, considering the Vikings offensive line, has been pretty good so far this season. Of course, Kenny Clark is a beast in there in the middle. He's been getting lots of pressures. Also, Preston Smith out there on the outside. But now, of course, with these other injuries, we elevated Tipa Gallier. I always say his name wrong. We added him to the Packers roster, so we'll see some of him, and then also probably some more Jonathan Garvin. Especially for Sean Gary's out. It's going to be an interesting matchup, I think, between this Vikings offense and this Packers defense. It should be a good matchup. Justin Jefferson, Kirk Cousins, Eric Stokes, Darnell Savage, lots of different guys. And then also, before I move on to the other side of the ball with the Packers offense facing off against the Vikings defense, right now the Vikings, just for their rankings, just so you have this in your head, Vikings 14th best scoring offense in the NFL. And comparing to the Packers, they're 19th. 7th best total offense in the NFL when it comes to yards. Packers are 20th. 9th best rushing offense in the NFL in yards. Packers are 19th. And the 9th best passing offense in the NFL. And the Packers are 18th. So the Vikings have had a pretty, solid offense this year, better than the Packers when you take a look at all those stats. And now moving on to the other side of the ball, as I just said, the Packers haven't been as good as they were last season. They were one of the best offenses in the NFL last year. And this season, it hasn't been the same. It's sort of crazier that right now, the thing really carrying this Packers team has been their defense. If our defense wasn't playing at this level, clearly the Packers wouldn't have the record that they do have, considering right now the Packers are the 19th best scoring offense in the NFL. So coming in this week, facing off against a Vikings defense that I'd say is a middle-of-the-road defense. Taking a look at their scoring defense, they're the 16th best scoring defense in the NFL, allowing about 23.4 points per game. And they're the 23rd best total defense when it comes to yards, allowing 361 point yards allowed per game. And one thing about this defense, they will be getting back their safety, probably one of their best defensive players, Harrison Smith. He's been on the COVID list the past 2 games, so that will be a big boost for this Vikings defense. And then we also have Patrick Peterson, who is now in the Vikings, he was sent to the IR in week 6 with a hamstring injury, and he was just, I believe, removed from the IR. He's been practicing a little bit. He had a hamstring injury, so he may potentially be back this week versus the Packers. From what I was reading, they haven't, decided if he's good to go or not good to go coming into this game. So that could, potentially boost the Vikings defense. Even though, Patrick Peterson, I don't think he's a player, he really once used to be. He's a lot older and, just isn't, I don't think he has the talent that he used to have. He's still, a good player, but not the player he used to be. So this Vikings defense, one of their, I'd say, strengths is their ability to get to the quarterback. Right now, they have the most sacks in the NFL, averaging about 3.2 sacks per game. Only downside for them, they did lose their, one of their best pass rushers in Daniel Hunter a couple weeks ago to a season-ending injury. So that's definitely tough for this Vikings defense. But taking a look at the rest of their defense, on the inside of the interior on their defensive line, Dalvin Tomlinson has been a really good player this year. Right now, according to PFF, 18th best defensive lineman in the NFL. He's a very solid guy. So I think the interior of the Packers offensive line has struggled at times, especially Royce Newman. So it'll definitely be, a tough task for this Packers O-line, but I think that they've shown that they still have the ability to, play really well, even though we've dealt with so many injuries. Of course, biggest one, David Bakhtiari, who still hasn't really come back from that injury. Hopefully he'll be back soon. But from what it seems like, he still hasn't really been practicing at a full capacity. So hopefully he'll be back, at least by the playoffs. If at first, a week or two ago, it maybe seemed like he would be back soon. At this point, I honestly don't know. There's just not really any certainty. Matt LaFleur keeps saying, he's day to day, and we'll sort of see what happens. So who knows how long it'll be until Bakhtiari gets back. But this Packers line has, we've done a pretty good job. Royce Newman, I think, has struggled a lot, but, Elton Jenkins holds it on the left side, Billy Turner on the right side, then John Runyon, Lucas Patrick, of course, with as center, with Josh Myers, still being injured, our rookie center. So it'll be definitely a tough task coming in against this Vikings defensive line. And then if we take a look at sort of their corner situation, we already talked about Patrick Peterson. He hasn't been amazing so far this year when he was playing, and I think that is the area where the Packers could potentially take advantage. We have Bashaud Breeland on the outside, who right now has been one of the worst cornerbacks in the NFL, according to PFF. Right now, they have him ranked as the 102nd ranked cornerback right now for this Vikings defense. And if we take a look at some of his stats, right now he has a 115.3 passer rating allowed when quarterbacks have targeted him, and he's had multiple games allowing guys to have over 100 yards receiving, or at least giving up over 100 yards receiving. Looking right now, I can see week 1 he gave up 107 yards, week 3 102, week 8 139. He has a few good games in there, but not very consistent, I would say. So he could be a guy the Packers could take advantage of. And of course, for the Vikings defense, the biggest task will be, as it is for every defense, shutting down Devontae Adams, because clearly he's probably the best, or he is the best receiver on this Packers defense, probably the best receiver in the NFL. So it'll be a tough task, I think, for this Vikings defense to shut him down. We'll see if, their safeties are able to come in there and help it all against these guys. But overall, of course, another thing. Aaron Jones, of course, has injured his MCL. He sprained his MCL, and he could be out. He probably is going to be out for at least the next 2 weeks, and the Packers have a bye after that. So from what people have been saying as well, I think it could be smart for the Packers just to wait and hold out Aaron Jones until after the bye, just so that he gets healthy, because I don't think the Packers need to rush him back right now. Better, to have him healthier later in the season. And then also, of course, having A.J. Dillon here, he's been a beast, especially last week. Really played well with Aaron Jones going down. And I think that the Packers will be able to, get the job done with A.J. Dillon. So this Packers offense, I think, is, pretty, I guess sort of versatile. Even though they haven't been at the same level they were last season, they still have that ability to run the ball, with A.J. Dillon. The passing offense hasn't been, amazing recently, but I think that we still have the ability to come in there and, put up points. And I think that they will do well against this Vikings defense, just because, even though the Vikings have some good players, I still think the Packers and Aaron Rodgers will be able to take advantage of some weaknesses on this Vikings defense, specifically at the cornerback position. So we'll see what happens. It should be a very fun game to watch, as it typically is between the Packers and Vikings. Hopefully the Packers win, because I'm a Packers fan. If you're a Vikings fan, you're hoping for the opposite. And if the Vikings were to win this game, they'd be sitting at 5-5, which would put them, about 3 games behind the Packers in the NFC North. So I bet the Vikings are, coming in here. They have a lot to play for. They are at home, so they have that going for them. Last season, Packers were there at Minnesota, no fans there. Now they have the fans there. They have that noise. So I expect the Vikings to come in here and, play hard, have a good game. And as I talked about earlier in the video, they've had lots of, close battles so far this season against really talented teams like the Ravens, Cowboys, and Cardinals. So it should be a good game. I think it will be a close game. Hopefully the Packers come out on top. But if you guys haven't followed me on Twitter, Luke_Beller, for more Packers content. If you have yet to subscribe, feel free to subscribe to the channel. I put out, besides just, these kind of previews and prediction kind of things, I also put out, Packers news, other kinds of things like that. So if you want to see more of that, make sure you guys hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications so you get the news right away sent directly to your phone if that's where you watch these videos. But that is going to be it for this one. Thank you guys so much for watching. I do appreciate all you guys, and I'll see you guys in the next video.